This next video is on useEffect. We're going to look at how it's used, the different situations you can use it, and the different options for actually using useEffect. So let's get straight into it. I always start with looking at the actual documentation of the hook. So useEffect, what it does, it takes in a function, and in this function you can do whatever you want. Usually what it's used for is API calls. Any Redux actions that you want to fire, you would do it in an effect, because that affects the props. It could re-render the component. What useEffect is trying to replace in the lifecycle methods is component did mount, component did update, and component will unmount. We'll go through how it replaces all those. Yeah, looking at the Facebook example, they use a prop that allows you to subscribe for some service. Pretty simple. So yeah, let's just get cracking. Okay, so we're just going to fake an API call in this to demonstrate the useEffect. We'll just use the same example as them in the docs, and we'll have unsubscribe to show the cleanup. Love prettier. Okay, so we're passing in this object prop. Just going to destruct it here. Bam. Okay, so we've got a prop. It's got two functions in there, and these are effectively going to be API calls that has a side effect. Let's import the useEffect hook, and quite simply we are just going to have a function. Do we need an arrow function? It looks neater inline anyway. I've started to reduce the amount of arrow functions I've used because we're not using this. There's no need to actually bind the context. So yeah, arrow functions look neater inline. Cool. So what we want to do in this case is subscribe. So now what this will do, this will run that effect on each render every time regardless. So let's see how that looks. So as you can see there, it's done it. Yeah, so what we'll do, we'll put in an input so there are updates, like the re-renders, so we can see what happens to that actual effect and why, when it gets pumped out. Okay, simple enough. So as you can see there, as I'm typing, the subscribed is logging out. It's running each time. Now, what if you want to mimic component did mount and just have it on the first re-render? What they show in the docs here is not obvious at first glance, but if you pass an empty array into the useEffect function, it tells React that that effect doesn't depend on any value from the component. So it'll only run once, because the second parameter of useEffect here is actually dependencies. So these are a value that the effect depends on, meaning if that value changes, then it'll run the effect. If that value doesn't change, it won't run the effect again. So it'll only run it on initial render. So for component did mount, you just put an empty array in. Now, if we go back to our page, you see it says subscribed, but as I'm typing, it's not going, it's not doing it again, which is good, it's great. Now, what if you wanted to do an unmount? That's easy enough to answer as well. You just have you return with a function, a callback. So you return a function, and this function can simply be something like .unsubscribe, yeah, and this will run on an unmount. So yeah, just using the test to show an unmount, you can see here you got a log of subscribed and unsubscribed when it unmounts it, so that's helpful. Now what we want to do, we want to create a button with a counter. Yeah, it's going to start from 0, and we'll add this button here. So yeah, this button will trigger the hook when it's clicked. So we just want to say here on click set count to count +1. Okay. And in here, we just put in count. So yeah, you can see it's subscribed. This is not changing. As soon as I click this, there you go. It's re-rendered, so the component unmounted and remounted because it re-rendered. This doesn't affect it, but this, as soon as this changes, it affects it. Let's make it look nice, yeah? See the count? So yeah, that shows it working nicely. So yeah, let's see what else useEffect has. I think that's it. There are more details, more notes on the useEffect and the actual workings behind it. I would definitely recommend you to read this through. But yeah, so that's useEffect in a nutshell. I hope this has helped you get an understanding of it. It's obviously still quite new and there's many different ways to use this. The one thing actually that I didn't point out is the reusability of hooks, which is meant to be its main feature. So as you can see here, this actual function can be elsewhere. So I can put that in an effect. Now the way I would do that is here, so app.effect.js, and I will take this function. I'm going to use a normal function because it makes sense here. So what we want to do is pass source in, and we will be returning the callback from here. So yeah, this is an effect. Let's name it correctly, subscribe effect. So this is an effect. I'll import this into the app component. Okay, this should work exactly the same. You can see it did in the test there below, and just to confirm that, so that's now made that effect reusable. I can reuse that same bit of subscribe logic effect in any component. So this is one of the powerful features of hooks and why it was implemented. I hope that video has helped, giving you a better understanding on the useEffect hook. I will be talking about other hooks going forward. So yeah, keep a watch out on the videos.